Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Wednesdays, the show where we oftentimes review 3 movies, because that's the format of the show. And guess what? We've got 3 movies to talk about tonight. We're talking about a trilogy. Look at that. It's a weird coincidence of talking about 3 movies and talking about a trilogy, and then we're going to talk about a tricycle. No, we're not, but I just wanted to throw in another 3 gag in there somewhere. I had to, at least. And there's going to be another one before this intro is over, so stick around for that. But on to the business. On our watch list tonight, we are going to be taking a look at the Three Colors trilogy. I will get into these in just a second, but before we go there, the 3 movies on the watch list are Three Colors Blue from 1993, Three Colors White from 1994, and Three Colors Red from 1994 as well. Same as Three Colors White. So, let me explain something really quick here before we go off to our first music break of the night. For those of you who have been listening to my show ever since its inception, you may recognize these 3 titles. You may recognize the name of the trilogy, because I've talked about these movies 2 other times before on my show in one way or another. So if you're tuning in for the first time, this will be the first time you hear me talk about them. And if you've been listening before, this will be your 3rd time hearing me talk about them. See, I told you there was another 3 joke in there somewhere. And because of that, I find it incredibly fitting. I was about to say extremely, and then it went to incredibly. I don't know which one I was going to go for, but we're just going to go extredibly, and we'll just leave it there. It's incredibly important to leave it off on a high note. So this will be my last time talking about the Three Colors trilogy here on What to Watch Wednesdays. But I'm still extremely excited for it. I've talked about them before, and I really like them, so it's definitely not going to suffer just because I'm talked about them 2 other times. If anything, it's going to really boost up the show because I know exactly what I'm going to be talking about tonight. Because after the break, we are going to be jumping into Three Colors Blue. So stick around for that. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Three Colors Blue from 1993, available to watch now on Max. For the basic plot summary of Three Colors Blue, we follow a French woman by the name of Julie as she loses her daughter and her husband in a car crash. That's a very sad way to start off the plot description. Don't worry, it gets more sad. The rest of the movie is concerning Julie as she tries to move past the situation, move past the accident, and start a new life without her family. And the internal conflict of her not being able to do that and being incredibly racked with grief because she did not grieve properly. Again, bag of sunshine and rainbows, I tell ya. Real happy subject matter. Don't worry, there is a point to it. There is artistry to Three Colors Blue. It's not just a weep fest the entire time. If anything, it's kind of the opposite of a weep fest. It's kind of more this cerebral emotional feeling. And part of that comes from Julie's inability and this very clear internal conflict from struggling with being unable to move on from a tragic thing happening, right? So it's very much in Julie's head and her fighting against herself. And she's just not letting herself move on. By extension, the filmmakers and the director and co-writer of this movie are incredibly attentive to how to really mess with an audience. I mean, they really are. There's one trick that Three Colors Blue uses that I have not seen done in any other movie, and I don't know why, because it is extremely effective at forcing the audience to not move on until it wants you to. Let me explain to you why the editing of Three Colors Blue makes me so incredibly silly happy, but also really annoyed that nobody's ever borrowed from it, and makes me all the more confident that I can borrow from it and never get called out for it. Okay, so Throughout Three Colors Blue, we follow Julie throughout her daily life, or her life after not having a family anymore. You know, she's going to the pool and she's swimming around, or she's going to different cafes or something like that. And throughout the movie, there are moments where she is reminded of the accident, right? And the movie fades to black as it just kind of lets you sit in that moment. Normally, in cinematic technique, I don't think I need to tell you this, but I'm going to anyways, just to establish something very quickly. When a movie fades to black, that tends to signify to the audience, okay, we're going to move on to the new scene, to the next scene. We're going to move forward in time. We're going to move on to something else. We're going to change locations, right? Something along those lines tends to happen when you fade to black. Three Colors Blue goes, no, I'm not going to do that. You fade to black, looking at Julie's face in, let's say, the pool, right? She's looking up at the camera, it fades to black. It holds there for like 3 seconds, fades back in, and she's still in the pool looking at the camera. The exact same shot. The exact same shot. That is wild. That is a bold idea. That breaks a massive convention of cinematic storytelling. Why does it work? Let me tell you exactly why this works and why this hits so hard and why I am so incredibly burning excited to tell you about this specific thing. Three Colors Blue has one of my favorite soundtracks in any movie ever. Don't worry, they'll connect. So, what was his name again? Patrice, Julie's husband, who died in the car crash. The reason I don't remember it is because he died in a car crash. Give me a break. Patrice was a composer who, before he died, was writing this massive symphony to unify Europe, or a concerto, one of the two. He was writing a music piece. And this music piece sounds really good. It sounds incredibly beautiful. It's one of my favorite songs from any movie ever. It emotionally ties you to the character of Julie as she is remembering her husband. And you want to know where this symphony is played? That's right, during these moments where it fades to black, and we are stuck having to deal with Julie not being able to move on from the death of her husband. Do you see why this works? Do you understand why this makes me excited? This is why Three Colors Blue is so good. This specific trick, if the movie had sucked for the rest of its runtime, I would not have cared. This would be the thing that I would be scrambling to tell you about any way possible. And keep in mind that it was on the verge of not being so good. Because like I said, a lot of Julie's problems are extremely internal. It took me a good 30 minutes to really understand what Julie's actions were leading towards. What her goal was. Wow. I can't speak. Yes, I can, but I can't speak theoretically. It was difficult to always see what Julie's goal was when she was, let's say, registering for an apartment and using her maiden name instead of Patrice's last name, right? Or she was kind of going off on her own and not really acknowledging anything. She was selling off the house that they used to live in. She just was kind of distancing herself from everything. Even throwing out the concerto that her husband had wrote. She throws it in the back of a garbage truck just to ultimately try and forget about her husband. And this is in the first 30 minutes, so I'm not spoiling anything. Let me tell you right now, and this is something to keep in mind. If you don't take anything away from this review of Three Colors Blue, then keep this part in mind for when we're talking about Three Colors White and Three Colors Red. These movies expect patience from you with the understanding that they will deliver on it. Because everything I just said does come back into play at some point or another. All of her internal conflict is expressed externally in some way, shape, or form through the actress's performance, or just through the way she carries herself and just the things that she does, right? And it also all ties back together near the end and provides satisfaction. There is something to be gained from this movie. There's something important in its message about grief and moving past it and your connection to your fellow human being. It demands patience, and it takes a while to get there. But when it does, it's an extremely rewarding payoff. And that's something I want you to keep in mind as the trend for when we go into talking about Three Colors White after the break. These movies require patience, but the patience is always worth it. So we're going to go to another break, and when we come back, we'll start talking about Three Colors White. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Three Colors White from 1994, available to watch now on Max. For the basic plot summary of Three Colors White, we follow the Polish man Karol as he is sent out into the great cruel world with nothing to his name after his wife Dominique divorces him. Rather unfortunately, we're starting off sad once again, just like with Three Colors Blue. But it does kind of start to look up as, by sheer coincidence, Karol is found by another member of the Polish countrymen, right? Just another person from Poland, right? And this man allows Karol to travel back with him to their home country of Poland. And throughout the course of the rest of the movie, Karol ends up starting a new life with things to his name, all the while planning something in the background. And this is where I stop talking about the plot and avoid spoilers, because the rest of the movie does require the patience and requires the buildup of knowing what Karol is doing and kind of observing him. And it all eventually culminates into actually making sense, let me tell you. And that leads nicely into my first general point about Three Colors White. I, again, have reviewed these movies twice on my show before, and I've always been the most down on Three Colors White, specifically because I thought it was the weakest of the trilogy. I thought it was the one that didn't live up to the other two in a major way, or at least in a minor enough way, or like in a moderate way. Not minor wasn't the really best choice of words. In a moderate to massive way. I'm going to kind of amend my previous criticism of White and say that it's certainly better than I remember it. And it's certainly a lot closer to the other two in terms of quality. I still will maintain that it is the weakest in the trilogy, for specific reasons. One of them being that it is the most explicit of the three movies. It does benefit the movie, but it just kind of makes it stand out between the three of them because of some specific details of why Dominique ended up divorcing Karol. Don't need to explain any of that. If you're interested, I would recommend watching the movie, because I would recommend it if you're able to handle that kind of stuff. If you're not, that's what makes it kind of weak, because it's difficult to fully recommend it on those bases, or with that caveat. I don't even know if bases is a word. If I did, I just made it up. Don't worry about it. I also will say that Three Colors White, for being in a trilogy called Three Colors, it is the least colorful, least with heavy quotes, if you could hear it in my voice. I call it the least colorful because it's just not as saturated. One thing I neglected to talk about in White, I neglected to talk about in Blue specifically, is that these movies are really good at sticking to their primary color in the title. You'd kind of hope that, but it's just something that does require appreciation for the amount of effort that they put into such an idea, right? When it's in Three Colors Blue, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of bright blues, there's a lot of interesting uses of it with the props and the settings around it. Three Colors Red is also really good about it, and we'll get to that one later. But Three Colors White is the one that I wanted to mention the general idea in, because it's the one that this idea is least prevalent in, if that makes any sense. White is a very difficult color to saturate your entire frame with without it looking sterile, right? Without it resembling just a hospital the entire time. Three Colors White still has white in a lot of the scenes, and don't ever mistake this for me saying it's bad at sticking to the color ideas. It's just a lot more underscored than the other two in the trilogy. It's definitely not the most noticeable all the time, whereas Blue and Red are a lot more cinematic about it. There's a lot more emphasis put on it. White just kind of is in the background in a lot of these scenes. There again is a very, very specific scene that does use white to great effect, and one of them, or there's probably about two. I can't count for some reason, but there is at least one scene that uses white to great effect, which is a fade to white and showing Carol remembering his marriage with Dominique. But that's a flashback, and they're in a church that has white marble everywhere, and there's white pillars. It counts, and there's also pigeons. There's floating pigeons. My point is, even the one with the least saturation still uses white to the effect that it deserves to be used, because it's in the title of the movie, and they're trying to get something across with it. Just keep in mind that that comes with the caveat that I would say that red and blue are better at it. Okay? Okay. We're going to leave that there, because I feel like I talked a lot about that and didn't really get to my point exactly, but I got there eventually. So let's get to something that I can easily tell you right now. And that is that Carol as a character, man, am I sorry that I forgot about him. Let me tell you right now, for being a guy who got divorced from his wife and has nothing left, he's really funny. He's in like this weird, not even like down on his luck state of mind. He's just kind of like upbeat unintentionally. He kind of just skips around like a freaking cartoon character, like moving like a mix between Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, that it's actually kind of hilarious to watch him just walk around a bit. It makes it weirdly endearing to just watch him and kind of root for him, which is good. It was just something that I'm so sad I forgot about. I was like, man, he deserves props for his actual physical performance. And it just kind of goes to show that even the weakest of these three still has good things about it. It still achieves stuff. Specifically, one thing that I did not expect, or what I was hoping from Three Colors White, is despite it being my least favorite, not remembering the plot was going to do me well. I was going to watch through it. I wasn't going to have any spoilers whatsoever. I was going to go in pretty much exactly blind. And I was going to figure out what was going to happen at the end. What it was all connecting up to. What was it all going to lead to? I knew how it ended. I remembered how it ended. The ending stuck with me. But the process of getting there, I had completely blanked on. And I was hoping that it would be worth watching through to see that process. Let me tell you, it absolutely was. Again, this is the weakest one, and I can still say absolutely when you know it is going somewhere. When you have that confirmation that it is going somewhere, that is enough for it to make it all feel worthwhile. And that critique, or that massive amount of praise for the weakest one, applies to the best one. Because after the break, we are going to jump into Three Colors Red, which is, in my opinion, the best at this specific concept. So stick around after the break, where we jump into that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Three Colors Red from 1994, available to watch now on Max. For the basic plot summary of Three Colors Red, we follow Valentine, a beauty model, as she runs over a dog, accidentally. Don't worry, she didn't purposely run over it, and must take the dog back to its owner to let the owner know that she ran over the dog. Off to a wonderfully happy and uplifting start already. I know, these movies start off kind of shocking. A lot of very unfortunate situations happening. But unfortunate situations lead nicely into conflict. And as it turns out, this is a very good kind of instigator for conflict in this movie, because when Valentine goes to the owner of the dog, she finds out that the owner is a man by the name of Kern, this old retired judge who lives in his house, does not leave, and spies on his neighbors by wiretapping. Of course, Valentine takes issue with this because she's a normal, well-adjusted person. And over the rest of the movie, it's this very strange dynamic that forms between Kern and Valentine, wherein they start off kind of hostile, or at least Valentine hostile towards Kern, and end the movie not being hostile towards each other. It's definitely not a romance. I would not qualify it as a romance. But to say that it's not a strangely intimate connection would be kind of false advertising on my end. So I will say it is a strangely intimate connection. Again, not romantic, but confusingly and incredibly interesting, complex, and not at all just a friendship. And I haven't ever figured out a way to fully describe their relationship. And I'm not going to try to now, because I think that it makes more sense to just tell you right now, in case it wasn't clear already, the Three Colors trilogy is built off of its relationships. Quite obviously, all three of these movies are related on, let's say, Julie's relationship to her husband and not being able to forget about him. We've got Carol's relationship to his wife who is divorcing him, Dominique. And we've got Kern and Valentine's relationship, which again, unromantic, but it felt like it could have leaned towards that. Because it's Red, Red often being associated with romance and with the girl's name being Valentine. I'm surprised it wasn't as incredibly specifically romantic as it could have been. But at the same time, I'm very glad it isn't, because it's what makes Three Colors Red good, in my opinion. It's what makes me like this one over the other two. It's what makes me think it's the best of the three. And it deserves all of the praise it gets. Any of the other elements existing in Red that aren't as good as the other two movies is overshadowed drastically by this relationship between Valentine and Kern. The progression of it is given the most screen time out of any of the other relationships in either of the two movies, out of all three movies. It's the one that's given the most time on screen to develop. And watching it go from where it starts to where it ends is just so incredibly satisfying, yet so incredibly emotionally confusing. It just inspires something within you that I struggle to explain even today. It's difficult to nail it down, but the closest way I will explain it to you is it's like watching two souls who have this extremely wholesome connection and are separated only by an age gap or a specific point in time. If these two souls had been closer in age, there would definitely have been something between them, but there isn't. They're too separate in their own worlds for it to be that way. Do they want it that way? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know. There's just something so beautiful about the strange way it progresses. Again, I harp on it because it's one of those few things I've seen where it reminds me of Lost in Translation, okay? And I feel very lost in translation trying to explain it to you right now. That's how I feel. I think I can close out my opinion on Valentine and Kern's relationship by saying that this kind of thing, this type of relationship that is unbound by time yet happens through a dissonance in time, is my kryptonite. You make a movie about this kind of thing, I will pore over it. I will remember it for the rest of my life. And these were movies that I watched for the first time about 3 years ago. And when I watched them, I thought I remembered everything about them. I thought I would always remember everything about them. And when I reviewed them for the past 2 years on the show, I thought I had a good enough memory of them to review them back then. And rewatching them recently, I realized, no, I didn't. I was glad that I rewatched them recently in preparation for tonight's broadcast. Because let me tell you, 3 years later, there are entire chunks of all three of these movies that I completely forgot about and were important and added to the experience. That's what you want with movies. Obviously, you want to be able to come back and go, man, I don't remember that, but it's so good. Why did I forget about this? How could I have forgotten about this? Who made me forget about this? It was myself. If you take anything away from this, I was pleasantly surprised rewatching these for the first time, going, man, I forgot how good these were. I can't give any more plot details than that. I can't, in good conscience, spoil these at all for you. I can just say these movies are masterful. They deserve all the praise they get. They're internationally recognized as one of the greatest film trilogies of all time, and they will remain as one of my favorite trilogies of all time. So long, Three Colors. Thank you for helping me through What to Watch Wednesdays, for giving me something to talk about. But I'm not done talking. I'm far from done talking. This is just one send-off to one topic. And if you want to hear me talk about more topics, then might I recommend tuning in to What to Watch Weekends this this Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. If you want to hear me talk about more, tune in to What to Watch Weekends this Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. I figured I'd just do it over again because I flubbed the first time. That will be happening on Sunday because of the basketball game this Saturday, so that's just why it's being pushed back to Sunday. At the same time, if you're also interested in reading my reviews of movies after the show, please follow What to Watch Wednesdays at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces, on Instagram, and use at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces, to find the YouTube channel for What to Watch Wednesdays. There are old episodes of the show uploaded there constantly, and there will also be episodes of What to Watch Weekends uploaded to that channel. And with that being said, I will also be back next Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. I hope you tune in, where I'll be telling you all what to watch. Thank you, and good night.